Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we have two Honda legends, the ADV150 and the Honda Super Cub 125. In this video, we're going to look at both of these bikes. They're really quirky, very different, but which bike is right for you? The Honda Super Cub is basically a copy, a newer version of the most sold motorcycle ever, the Honda Super Cub. Of course, this is the 125 fuel-injected version, and this is a Honda ADV150. It's basically an adventure scooter, and it's its own species, really. Not many competitors out there to compete with this thing. So which bike is right for you? The Honda ADV150 is basically the newer kid on the block. It debuted in 2019 as Honda Stab, blending scooter practicality and with an adventure flair, and it's built on the bones of the Honda PCX 150. That's my previous scooter that I had that I really loved. And it's a very popular scooter. It's got a rugged edge to it. You know, I've always thought that adventure scooters would be a great idea because I've taken other bikes off-road and I really enjoyed it. And now, on this ADV, it gives you that. The idea was to take the PCX's 149cc liquid-cooled single-cylinder that only makes 14 horsepower and a CVT transmission, and then slap on chunkier tires, more suspension travel, about 4.7 in the rear, and a taller stance to handle potholes or light trails. Honda pitched it as the adventure scooter, hence ADV, though it's more of a city warrior than a backwoods beast. No knobbies are on this bike, but it's very practical having a little bit more suspension for a scooter. So the top speed is really where these two bikes are very different. The Honda Super Cub 125 has got a smaller engine, so you'd expect it to be slower than the ADV150. But the thing is, because of the CVT transmission on the ADV150, the top speed on the ADV is limited. Top speed on the Super Cub is a incredible 72 miles per hour downhill. Now on the ADV 150, you basically have a CVT that is very limiting. You can tweak it here and there, and the ADV has got 14 horsepower compared to the Super Cub's 9, and it's still slower. The CVT really limits it. You could put rollers, you could put like a variator, but it's really not going to help it too much. The Super Cub, I was very surprised that the top speed was greater. It's also got a transmission with a chain and sprocket, so you can change that ratio very easily and get a little bit more top speed or even a little bit more grunt down low. When it comes to speed, the CVT of the ADV150 is faster, it's smoother. It gets up to speed much faster than the Super Cub's very clunky shifting. Let's talk about transmissions. On this Super Cub, you have a semi-automatic transmission, so no clutch lever, and you have a shifter. You have a toe shifter or a heel shifter. When I first rode a Trail 125, I was going back with the heel, and when you ride motorcycles for a long time, you kind of get used to the shifter and the toe. And the best thing about this is you can ride it like a motorcycle. So you can shift this way normally, or you can choose to use the heel if you have like high heel shoes or sandals. I didn't know this, but in Thailand, where they ride with sandals, they use the toe shifter and the heel shifter much more than we do here. But this one has got a transmission that's got a chain and sprockets. It's covered. So the transmission and the chain is actually going to last a little bit more time than the CVTs. And I don't have a problem with the CVTs. This is a CVT, so it's fully automatic. You twist it and go. It's much smoother than this one. On this, you just twist and go. It gets up to speed much faster than this one. But get this. This is faster, top speed, than this. So when it comes to wheels, that's a 17-inch wheel. Both front and rear are 17s. And why does that make a difference? Well, wheels and tires have a lot to do with suspension. So this, when you ride the Super Cub, you actually feel like you're riding a proper motorcycle. These are 17s. It's the same size as there are in motorcycles, sport bikes. Now, the only thing is that it's a very narrow tire, so it's got a very low resistance when rolling. And that helps MPGs, and it's effective. The large diameter goes over potholes, even if you don't have great suspension. Both 17 front and rear, easy to get, rubber. They are tubeless. When I first got this, I thought they had tubes inside. I'm glad that Honda gave us tubeless tires. And it's a single-sided rotor in the right. This one's got the rotor on the left. It's very interesting. Both ABS bikes, only ABS in the front, which is interesting, and it's got a rear drum. Now on this one, you have a 14-inch front, which is, I think, the best combination for a scooter. I've ridden scooters with larger wheels, and I prefer this over the smaller wheels. A 10-inch wheel scooter is a death trap in a city. So this 14, great. But Honda screwed up and they gave us a 13-inch rear, which I don't like. The PCX that I had a 14-inch rear. Less suspension, but I preferred it much more than a 13. Another benefit of this, even though it's a smaller diameter, is that it is a wide tire. Normally scooters have pencil-thin tires, like that one. But this one, it's a shorter 14-inch, but it's thick. So it goes with the ADV styling of this particular bike. Single rotor up front, ABS only in the front, and drum in the rear. My particular Super Cub has got aftermarket shocks. This is very stiff, and I prefer softer suspension. The ADV, you have shoei suspension. It's about 4 inches of travel in the rear. This looks awesome. I love the gold that they put on Hondas, the golden style. That's actually an old Honda thing. They used to put gold on everything. But of course, this is shoei. Normally, you do not see good suspension on a scooter at this price range. So I'm glad that Honda did spend a little bit more money and gave us decent suspension. This is a ADV scooter. This is one of its limitations. And as you can see in my videos in the past, you cannot ride this through water. I mean, you're very limited to about here and probably even lower because the CVT is right here. The engine and the CVT is all in the swing arm area. You have much more weight in the rear back of a scooter like this than the Super Cub. The air filter is here. And what happens is that if you go over water like this, it's going to get sucked into the engine. So be very careful. This bike is very tight. Everything about it is tight. Batteries here, even though it's easy to access the battery, it's a very tiny little compartment. You need little tiny hands to kind of maneuver around here. And if you notice, the engine head is right there. So if you ever want to do a valve adjustment, you just turn the wheel and it's right there. I do like that the engine is exposed. A big difference between this engine and that, just the location itself. The location is more of a motorcycle because it is in the frame as opposed to the swing arm of the ADV150. So this creates a little bit more of a centralized and low to the ground weight. On the ADV150, you have much more weight towards the back. You are going to have to deal with sprockets. And one of the things I hate about motorcycles is chain and sprockets. It's a messy thing. They do last quite a bit of time. And if you notice here, this little plug, you remove it to basically figure out if your chain needs adjustment. So you put your finger in there, see if it's too loose or too tight. So that is a nice thing. Is that Honda does not give you a kickstand with this, which is a big mistake. This bike is completely covered in plastic. The engine is right over here. So if you ever have to do a valve adjustment, you're going to have to remove a lot of plastic, the seat, the bucket, in order to access the freaking head of the engine, the spark plug is actually easy. I got it right here. Just pull this up. When you open up the storage compartment, there's a button here, seat. You pop it open. You have quite a bit of space here to put a helmet. You could put a full-size helmet in here. This is one of the reasons people pick scooters over motorcycles for commuting and just general errand riding, is the storage. And the battery is very easy to access right over there. Another thing that this bike has is a very large pocket. This pocket is much better than the PCX that I had. And also, it has a 12 volt power supply in here so you can charge your phone. Now let's check out the Super Cub's storage. Let's check out the underseat. Oh, so you can push it here. There's a button on it's kind of hidden. And right there, you have no storage ability at all. On the Super Cub, you have the gas tank here, and it's a 1 gallon gas tank. The range is about 90 when it starts to flash. Not a good range at all. It does have a little compartment. There's a button here, you push it, and this pops out. And it's another useless pocket where you have tools, and that's about it. The ADV150 carries the passenger. This does not. Honda does give you a nice rack, but notice there are no passenger foot pegs at all. On the ADV, you have passenger foot pegs, so much more practical. And of course, no storage in the front. There's no pockets in the front, so you can put your phone. There's none of that. And another bad thing is that Honda has shielded the entire thing with plastic, which looks great. But that gives you very limited capacity to carry a phone. Like you have to figure out a different way of mounting. And for me, I'll show you the way I mounted this. I think it's the best way of mounting a phone. Bought one of these cylinder type of USBs. It's got a USB 2 and a USB-C, and that's pretty much all I need. But Honda should have put something here for riders, because this is a 2022. People have phones, they want to be able to charge it. And I have this ball. It's a ram mount that goes onto the mirror itself. It's not great. It's just not a great way of mounting. I prefer getting right into the handlebars. Now let's look at the ADV, and this is the beauty of it. Handlebars. These MX handlebars are great. I have a bunch of mods. I put this here in case I want to mount something on here. I also have a cup holder. Now, don't ask me why I have a cup holder. I haven't used it, but I had it, so I might as well throw it in there. Then I have my phone cradle. And then here I have my USB charger with the cable dangling. Same one that I got for the Super Cub. So I like that it cuts a very small profile. Put it here and go. But even if you didn't have this charger, you could run a cable from the glove box of the ADV150 all the way to your phone. And that's a much better option than the Super Cub's very minimal way of doing it. When it comes to carrying a passenger, you do have a seat for a passenger, and you have foot pegs for a passenger. This bike, of course, is going to slow down with 2 people on it, but you can still carry them. The passenger capacity on the Super Cub is non-existent. You don't have passenger foot pegs. You don't have a seat in the rear. You have a single seater. So basically this bike doesn't want you to ride with a passenger. So let's talk about headlights. This is everything style with this. Retro style, plastic, LED though. That's nice that they gave us LED. And it's fairly bright at night. It's not great. Let me show you what it looks like. So it is kind of cool looking, hard to see in the daytime. And this is what it looks like with the high beam. The Super Cub, the rear tail light is a typical LED, and it's fairly bright. But the problem is it's so small and down to the ground that I've had issues with cars not seeing it. Also, doesn't have a 4-way flasher like the ADV150. Much better. Much better. Even with a daytime running light, that pattern is much easier to see than the Super Cub. And you might be wondering, oh, why are you so picky? Well, when you have a nice bright rear brake light, cars are not going to run into the rear of you. I've actually had two cars hit me in the past, so I am always looking at my mirrors. Super Cub, you have these two round retro style mirrors. Absolutely useless. Look, they're all very good for having something that looks cool. You know, we've all had bikes with round mirrors, but these round mirrors are useless. And the reason is these mirrors, you basically get all of this covered up. You can't really see behind you. And you're going to find that Honda really should have brought the stock a little bit more. If they brought it to here, it would have been easier to look behind you. And if you have just normal shoulders, you're just going to be looking at your shoulders. Round mirrors are great for styling, but not great for functionality. When it comes to mirrors on the ADV150, these are so much better than the Super Cub. They come out much further towards the lateral parts of the bike, so you can see the lane behind you and the lane to the right. Much more usable. The Super Cubs, they're just too narrow, so it makes it a much more useless mirror to ride with. When it comes to reliability, Hondas are like cockroaches. Every Honda that I've ever bought, even barn find Hondas, they have been dead reliable. And there's no reason that these two are not going to be reliable and durable. But I'm going to give the edge to the Super Cub. It's a simpler engine, air-cooled, liquid-cooled. This one is easier to maintain just because of the engine head is exposed as opposed to having it covered in plastic. And when you have things that are less complex, they tend to be more durable. Now, this is going to be just as durable. I got 16,000 miles on this. I only have 6,000 on this. They're great. Now, one of the key issues, is the keyless ignition. These things are not that great. And I had the PCX and I kept dreaming, oh, maybe I'll get a keyless system. It'll be so much easier. And then I bought a Ducati Diavo and the keyless ignition doesn't work. These bikes are made in Mexico. They're not made in Japan anymore. You know, my CRF, this and this, made in Mexico. And I've had things go wrong in bikes that were made in Mexico. Not anything with the engine, but the parts around it. They seem to break. The CRF 250, for example, the fan shroud for the radiator melted. Those are the things that will go wrong. Not so much the frame, the engine, the transmission. It's the little things. You get these small engines for the MPGs. At least I do. I love getting 100 miles to the gallon. This thing gets about 105 miles to the gallon, 103 to 105. This thing has got a range of 188 miles due to the 2.1 gallon gas tank. That's incredible. That's a usable range. That's a range that a motorcycle gets. MPGs are lower than this. On this one, you have a MPG of about 140 miles to the gallon. Honda actually claims 188, but the 188 is Imperial. In England, that's what they use, so it's slightly lower, but about 140. But the big bad thing is that this thing, it's got a 1 gallon gas tank, meaning that the range on this is useless. 100 miles to the gallon, 102, 3, 4, 5 miles to the gallon makes it a very usable range. You have excellent lighting, you have liquid cooling, you have more comfort than the Super Cub. You can stretch your legs out with the seating position. You also have the ability of carrying a passenger. But of course, it's a scooter. Not a lot of people like the scooter format of motorcycles. Now, the benefits of the Super Cub is that it's a nostalgic bike. It's a 1960s style bike with modern conveniences. Keyless ignition, it's air-cooled, it's easy to ride, it's tiny in comparison to this that makes it look like a Goldwing. The ADV makes this thing look small. And it is just one of the bikes that gets the most attention that I've ever had. It's tiny, it's unassuming. People really love seeing it. They always think it's an old bike when it's really just a very well done retro bike. And there are some amazing things to it. You know, you go down to a Bikes and Coffee, this is the bike to take. Not this one. This one's more of a workhorse, everyday, practical. This one's not practical at all. It is all style. The con of this one is that even though it's got a very good MPG, 140 miles to the gallon, it's only got a 1 gallon gas tank. So your range is limited. To me, a 90 to 100 miles range is not that good. Another big con of this is that it doesn't come stock with a kickstand. If I remove it, it's in neutral. If I put it in first, you see how it stops. But if you park it on a downhill, it just moves. So not that great. And of course you have to shift. The shifting on this bike, you get used to it, but it's a whole lot clunkier and rougher than this. So who wins the shootout here? What bike would you pick? Write in the comments below. If you had some money to buy and you only had to pick both of these bikes, what would you pick and why? For me, I like both of them, but I can't keep all of them. These are both great bikes. I really love them. You cannot go wrong with Hondas. Every Honda that I've ever bought has been dependable, reliable. Can't say that for other manufacturers. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.